wonderful to be here today. Thanks everyone for turning up and coming to listen to us. I think we should probably introduce ourselves first, so
sure.
I will jump in if you like. My name is Ruth Stergiou, CEO of Invention Future Enterprises. I have an educational services company which focuses on leadership development for women. So that's my background is actually I started life as an educational administrator in the United Kingdom, and for the last 20-some years in California, I've had a business focusing on helping women get to the next level of their careers, whether they're small business owners or corporate women. I produced the California Governors Conference for Women for 17 years, for 4 different governors, and built up the Professional Businesswomen of California organization, and continue to, we have our own events now under our own umbrella, which is Invention Future. So that's what we do. I'm sorry?
The 26th and 27th, right?
26th
and 27th of this month.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Thank you for the plug. Yes, indeed. Coming up.
All right. I'm Deborah Shea, and I'm kind of coming to you today wearing 2 hats. I'm the CEO and president of Hellbent Marketing, which is my own firm in Redwood City that we've been up and running now for about 8 years. We're a branding and web design firm specializing in marketing campaigns of all sorts. We also do a lot of consumer retail packaging work, and we work with a lot of small companies from startups to mid-size, typically is our sweet spot. And I'm also the president of the National Association of Women Business Owners in Silicon Valley. And that is an organization I've been involved with for about 6 years now, and we are very focused on helping women build their businesses from startup to all the way up to a large enterprise. We're very, very committed to supporting women in the area. We also are part of a consortium in California of 9 chapters, as well as the national organization. So just to let you know, that's an organization that's great if you're ever looking for any help with business problems or opportunities. That would be a great place for you to visit. And with that, you want to start?
Start ahead.
So we're going to be trading off here, and I'm starting out with some of these fast facts. So today, I suppose as we know, there are 10.1 million firms owned by women, employing more than 13 million people, generating 1.9 trillion in sales. California has the greatest number of women-owned firms in the country. Between 1997 and 2011, the number of businesses in the U.S. increased by 34%. The number of women-owned firms increased by 50%, a rate 1.5 times the national average. These are unprecedented numbers. The growth of women businesses is just astounding. And so if this is an area that you are thinking about moving into at some point, there's no better time than now. This is astounding to me as a woman business owner. As long as I've been in business, the growth is phenomenal, and we're going to show you a few reasons why. One thing I just wanted to point out to you was, I think it's in the mid-'80s that there was a law passed that allowed women to take a business loan out from a bank without a co-signature of a male relative.
1984.
1984. Now, I don't know about you all, but I was a fully formed, grown-up person in 1984. And if someone had told me that I needed to have my dad or my brother or my husband sign a loan that I was going to take out, I would have told you you were just smoking crack. This is astounding, okay? So it just kind of shows you how far we've come, and that wasn't very long ago, that you were not able to take a loan out in your own name by yourself, okay? Right.
So we're going to talk a little bit about this. The numbers tell the story.
Okay.
Right? So overall, women-owned firms have done better than their male counterparts over the last 14 years. And that's a very interesting statistic. So we want to drill down a little bit and see why that is. We're going to talk about some of the qualities later on that make women entrepreneurs particularly unique. What other trends that we're seeing, minority women entrepreneurs start business at 4 times the rate of non-minority women. So that is also an astonishing statistic, and this relates not just to the United States, but also globally. In 2009, the economy saw historically large declines in jobs creation rates, but still new and expanding firms were creating more than 14 million jobs. So small business is actually where the jobs are coming from. There are fewer and fewer coming from the major corporations, but really small business is the engine driving the recovery. And the surge in global women's entrepreneurship is just truly astonishing. As Maddie Dykle mentioned earlier today, international aid is considered a fantastic investment to put it into women entrepreneurship globally. Some NGOs are really finding that they're getting a better return on their investment by giving to women, because the money stays in the community. It goes back into education, it goes back into businesses. And there are some incredible stories out there. In a couple of weeks at our conference, we have a speaker who's going to be talking about the growth of women's entrepreneurship in Afghanistan. And she tells an amazing story, a book that's out a few weeks ago called The Dressmakers of Stergiou. And it's about the women entrepreneurs in Afghanistan who created this amazing sort of underground NAWBO network of 100 women entrepreneurs supporting themselves in the most incredible conditions. They couldn't go outside, unless they were accompanied by a male relative, and most of the men had left because they were fighting. And so there's this amazing story of a young woman, 19 years old, who had to support 5 younger sisters, and she had a baby brother that she had to take with her everywhere, so she could actually conduct business while wearing a full burqa. But she created jobs for 100 women entrepreneurs in her community, and it's a remarkable story. I encourage you to read the book if you get the opportunity. The Dressmaker of Stergiou, and the author is Gail Samak Lemon. So there's some very interesting stories, but we're seeing this more and more internationally in all sorts of communities. And I think there's a couple of reasons we have to examine. Why are women starting businesses in such numbers? Oftentimes it's because of opportunity, but oftentimes it's also because of necessity. And so we're seeing those 2 reasons are both coming together. And finally, just on a slightly less positive note, the one thing we all need to focus on, I think in the United States, it's a staggering statistic to me to know that only 3% of women-owned businesses gross over $1 million. So women-owned businesses tend to be small. If you also look at where the venture capital money is going in Silicon Valley, only less than 10% of venture capital money goes to women-owned businesses. So that's kind of the negative side of the picture. Those are the things we're going to change. We're looking to your generation to make sure that you do. So moving on to the next slide.
So we have a quote here for you. Who said, entrepreneurs, business owners, marketers, policymakers, economists, distinguished readers, our economy is just coming out of recession, unemployment's high, and we barely dodged the bullet of a financial industry meltdown a few short years ago, yet the state of women-owned businesses is strong.
This is your first text.
Yes.
Who said that?
Been paying attention? Who said that?
Obama?
Obama!
That's right.
Is that right?
Yes! It was
Oh my
right.
God.
That was
Hey!
the State of the Union address this year.
Yes.
I thought I recognized
The
it.
President is acknowledging.
But it's the phrasing, it's the way it's said.
I don't have his abilities. I'm working on it, but I don't have it. Yes, okay. All right.
So why is this happening? What qualities make for a very successful entrepreneur? What do we need to look to? Well, obviously leadership is a key component. And one of the interesting facts I think about women's entrepreneurship is that we don't necessarily have to replicate the leadership qualities of male-run companies. We tend to have a little bit different style, sometimes different values, and you see less from the command and control model of women-run businesses. They tend to be more collaborative. I think women leaders tend to be have a bit more empathy perhaps for their community and for their staff. So it's a different leadership style, and I think that's an important point. For any entrepreneur, a high level of integrity, being authentic, being true to yourself, of course, is very important. As is agility. I'll say you have to be a really good dancer to be an entrepreneur, because you have to be able to be pretty nimble and be able to read the market and what's changing and how can you change direction in your company if necessary. You need to have a business plan, but you really need to be agile and flexible with it. Confidence is a very important one. You're always out there when you're a business owner. You have to be able to represent your company, sell your ideas and concepts all the time. You have to have a lot of faith in what you're doing. And really build that confidence and be very passionate about what you're doing. And I often get asked, well, what's the difference between, what's that fine line between being confident and being cocky or obnoxious? And there was a great quote, I think it was from Jack Welch I came across. The line between confidence and arrogance is curiosity. So I think it's very important that you're a good listener and that you ask a lot of questions, but at the same time be very confident in what you're doing. And the final one here is, I put it down in 3 different ways just to stress how important it is. Resilience, perseverance, and tenacity. All 3 of those are.
You can tell we feel strongly about
that. I kind of feel very strongly about that one. Just as a reminder, you have to be able to take rejection. You have to be so convinced that there's value in what you're doing that it doesn't matter who says no to you. And if you look at really successful companies, most of them have been through amazing rejection, or even very successful authors. I'm always amazed how many fantastically successful people have just been rejected time and time again. Cisco was rejected 68 times for funding for venture capital money. There are all sorts of stories like that. So resilience and tenacity, I think, are important.
And I think that also goes back to confidence, and that's one of the things that I know when I talk to women and I talk to small business owners, but quite a bit in terms of women, that confidence building, that's a very tough one. Especially when we don't have the mentorship that has been traditionally associated with male-dominated companies. My parents, as I've mentioned in other speeches that I've done, just hoped that I would marry well. So to that, and the fact that I would have a business that would actually make money, that business would be successful. I still don't really think that they know what I do. But, that was just not part of my history. That was just not part of what I grew up with. And so I think you all have a real advantage in that, you do have more and more mentors and leaders that you can look up to. Nancy Pelosi being someone in the government, that was really astounding to me, and I was so proud of that moment that she became Speaker of the House. And I told my daughter, who's 15, this is history being made for you. And so.